Congresswoman, we're really excited to have you on our debut week. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too. So the main reason we wanted to ask you on was because of this amazing exchange you had in a congressional hearing on Monday. We talked about it last night on our show. We just showed the audience again a clip of it as well. And I want to dig into that. But before we do, you just got elected to your second term in Congress. I've been following your political trajectory in large part because you had a pretty unconventional path to get to Congress. Even though for Americans, it's a very common experience, for members of Congress, unfortunately, it's quite uncommon. So for those who aren't familiar with it, can you talk about what it is you were doing before you ran for Congress, what brought you to Congress, and how those experiences shape the work that you do?
Sure. Before I came to Congress, I was a state lawmaker for three years before coming up here to D.C. And long before that, I was in business, had my own business for a while and did some commercial real estate. But I really got my start when I became the first woman to graduate from the Citadel, the Military College of South Carolina. And I was a high school dropout. I dropped out when I was 17. I had a lot of issues to work through personally for a couple of years early on. And the Citadel changed my life. And being in business and being successful there and seeing that there's so much bureaucracy at the federal level, bringing that business mindset to Congress was very important to me when I ran.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reason why I think it's so important to have different people of different backgrounds, not just this very straight line path from, say, Yale Law School to Wall Street to Congress like so many of your colleagues have traversed. So let's talk about this hearing on Monday, this exchange you had that reverberated around the internet for good reason. One of the things that caught my attention, and maybe it's because I worked as a lawyer, I did a lot of trial work, did a lot of questioning of depositions. What struck me about it is that you didn't just begin by asking Ms. Carabola about her tweets. You first lured them into affirming general propositions that extremist rhetoric can have spillover consequences to the real world, that urging people to accost political leaders can subject them to harassment and violence. And only then did you show her the tweets of her own that seemed to violate the standards she's espousing for everyone else. That showed me that you had some points you wanted to demonstrate in this exchange. What were those points you were hoping to illustrate, and what points do you think were demonstrated by what this exchange ended up showing?
Well, I wanted to get all the witnesses on the record saying and affirming that rhetoric, violent rhetoric, targeting our officials, violent rhetoric online, on social media, does impact society. And they acknowledged that, and they said, yes, it does. But oopsies, one of the witnesses had participated in such hateful rhetoric. And these people were here to speak out against hate speech and violent rhetoric online, and yet they're the same ones guilty of hate speech and violent rhetoric online. And I think it's important to call out the hypocrisy. I don't care if you have an R or a D by your name. Don't come in my committee and tell me that you support speech that's a lot nicer and then be peddling in hate speech. You know, and if you look at what happened this summer with our Supreme Court justices, I mean, someone literally showed up on the doorstep of Justice Kavanaugh's house, armed and dangerous, ready to kill. But he's not the only one. And we've seen it on both sides of the aisle, Democrats and Republicans being targeted. So don't come to the committee and be a hypocrite and say, hey, this speech is bad, but here I am. Here are the receipts participating in the same bad speech.
Yeah, you know,
it's so hypocritical.
Yeah, you know, I know it's hard to kind of gain insight into other people's motives. Sometimes it's hard enough to gain insight into our own, but I do wonder what you think about what it is that motivates what to me seems such a flagrant double standard. I mean, I've watched these same people. There's kind of a small handful of people that get cited as, they're called now online safety experts, as though this is a real expertise, who constantly, in this very sanctimonious way, warn of the danger of hateful rhetoric, of unifying on Twitter and social media to target people in a very directed way. And yet these same people are the ones who do it all day, every day, as you demonstrated so adeptly, against the people they regard as their political enemies. Do you think it's just a lack of self-awareness, that they don't realize that they're doing exactly that which they condemn? Or do you think they somehow in their minds they see it as different, that when people on the right are engaging in this kind of rhetoric, it's inherently dangerous, but when someone on the left does it, it's somehow less dangerous.
Oh, it's so self-righteous and elitist. I mean, you saw Hillary Clinton denying the former president, President Trump, that he actually won the election, that he wasn't a legitimate president. I mean, these same people project and accuse the other side of doing what they themselves have been doing. And what I don't like is the hypocrisy, the self-righteousness, these people anointing themselves to decide what is and what isn't constitutional, what kind of speech is constitutional. I can do it, but you can't. And there's a standard for the left, and then there's a standard for everybody else. And I think when you look at where America or the United States is, that 80 to 90% of the people that we represent don't buy into it. And it's important for us to hold both sides accountable and call out the BS and the lies and the hypocrisy, which I've been doing consistently, and was grateful for the opportunity to see this person who's supposedly an online security expert, whatever that means, peddling in hate and violent speech. Yet they say they oppose it, but they're the very ones doing it.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, you do have a record of holding your own side. Thanks for watching this clip from System Update. Catch our full shows for free, live weekdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on Rumble, and join our locals community at greenwald.locals.com for all of my written journalism, exclusive after-show Q&As, and more.